Welcome to the Fox Talks Business Podcast. I'm your host, Tanya Fox, money mentor, business coach, and author. If you're a business owner who's been around the block but still feels stuck in the financial fog or hustling without getting real results, well, you're in the right place. Each week, I'm going to dive into money mastery, mindset shifts, and real-world strategies to help you grow and profit sustainably. You're going to hear unfiltered conversations, bold ideas, and practical, proven ways to start growing your business. So if you're ready to break past the plateau, make more, stress less, and have fun doing it, let's dive in. Hello, Foxy listeners. Welcome to the show today. Today, we're going to be talking about growth mindset. We're going to be talking about boats, and we're going to be talking about who can be an entrepreneur. So to make all those things make sense, let's first welcome my guest, Francie. Francie, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Tanya. I'm delighted to be here. I'm ready to have a great chat.
So give us a little bit of background on you. What is your story?
Okay, so I decided that my origin story is that in business school, I really went to business school to kind of like eat my vegetables and learn finance and economics. So I went to the University of Chicago, which is like super quanty, and that was not my background. I was like a liberal arts major. And so I went there, and the thing that was like most defining for me, like as an adult, has been was taking the Myers-Briggs test,
Oh,
the
yep.
Myers-Briggs personality test. And I'd never had a personal assessment before. So I took it with my little cohort of 90 people. And so there are two funny stories, but like one, I always forget what my letters and numbers are or whatever. But
Yeah, I'm
yeah,
with you. I
exactly.
took it, but I don't know.
Yeah. Like the top two were like negligible. It was like right in the middle. I don't remember what those were. But then the third one was I was a little bit more a feeler than a thinker. And like that what was funny about that is that you can imagine at University of Chicago, I was rare. And so as a feeler, so I had to stand up in front of my cohort and talk about what that meant because they were like, "You are a strange being, a feeler at the University of Chicago." So that was really funny. And I was so embarrassed and like mortified. But the other discovery, the big discovery, the origin story really is that apparently every question they asked, I'd answered it on the extrovert side. So I was off the charts extrovert. Like it was like woo, like all the way over. And it was shocking to me because I don't think of myself as an extrovert. And because when I first saw that, I was like, but wait a minute, I'm not the person who like shakes everyone's hand when I walk into a bar or whatever, a conference, and like I'm shy. But what I realize is, though, for me, like I'm so motivated by relationships. And and then realizing, oh wow, and not everyone is apparently, like who knew? I thought the way I am is how everyone is. And that's why personal assessments are so valuable is you realize like some superpowers or things that make you different or special, whatever, or subpar, whatever the thing is. It was just really, really helpful. And so that sort of set me off on this whole kind of journey, I think. And so that was in business school, and I took that to just say, listen, here I am learning all this quant stuff and analysis, but what if I just make a career in, the relationship building within finance? And so that's what I did for a long, long time and different capacities, but working for like large corporations and hedge funds and private equity firms doing investor relations and marketing. And really what that is just explaining strategies and chatting with people and explaining things in a way that they can understand it as a generalist. You don't have to be super like in the weeds to understand what's happening. And like that was like a great role for me because it drives me crazy when people use lingo and explain things in a way that's like unclear. And so I was kind of like the opposite of that and trying to make stuff like super clear and like smart and crisp. And so that's how I started. And then I got obsessed with sort of thinking about who's helping people, whose careers are going away. Like, where do they go? And like, it became this obsession of mine. There's nothing really in my background to suggest I would be doing any of this stuff. But really, I was like, I just think that's wrong, And so it started because I was starting paying attention to the statistic about manufacturing jobs in America and how so many have been lost in the past few years. And it turns out, like, I just saw a chart actually that um, really the peak of American manufacturing was like the 1940s. So if you look at any time series, it's quite steep. There's like a lot of declining jobs. So you can really decide any period and say like we lost a lot of jobs, holy moly. And so what I kept saying was like, well, where do people go? Because I would assume that if you're in manufacturing, you didn't go to college. And so I always think college is a place where like has a lot of it's like career services that can help you if you're out of work. But I don't know of any high school that has career services that help out of work people. So yeah, so then who's helping them? Like how are people figuring this out? And then I thought, well, maybe that's creating a lot of fear. And then I thought, well, actually, by the way, that's another one of my superpowers is that I think it's really fun to switch careers. It doesn't bother me at all. And so then I thought, well, and so I was calling it like the Yahoo of career change. And I was like, well, who's doing that? And it was like funny because usually when I had these like thoughts about these businesses, there would be like only 10,000 websites doing the same thing. And I always was like, oh, only 10,000 people are doing it fine. But for this one, I couldn't find anyone. I was like, that's crazy. Like, how is nobody like helping these people? And so that's how it all kind of started. And now it's the business now is a little bit different from that initial question, but it's still the idea of like helping people find like the joy in their heart and connecting with experts to really be in the right place for them and truly being about like the intellectual honesty of like helping people and we're not selling things on the side, like we're not a conference, we're getting people in the door, we're not a headhunter getting paid by someone who's hiring them. It's truly about like helping people like grow and be great. And that's what it is now. So it's really fun.
Well, and there was so much in that I want to like tell you. I was like, we were talking beforehand off air. I'm like, let's just see if we dump down some rabbit holes. And I'm like, oh, there's so many holes here, and it just makes my heart happy.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for people to do personality tests. And I will preface that by saying I hated them.
Oh, yeah, totally.
I was like, oh my God, like, well, you're going to tell me I'm a purple butterfly or I'm a unicorn or like whatever. Like I just avoided them at all costs. And I remember like I went and started with a new coach and she was like, look, anybody who comes with me, you need to do. And it was the actual Myers-Briggs one. You need to do this because I need to know how to communicate with you. That's the most effective. And this is just a tool that I use. So I was like, fine, whatever. I'll answer your stupid questionnaire. And so like I went through it and it was so funny because she was like super, super like shy. She was like, there's one statement that came out and I want to bring it to your attention, but I don't want your feelings to get hurt or anything like that. This is literally the way it's written on the paper. And I'm like, just say it. It's fine. Yeah. And she was like, it just says that, like typically like a sentence to describe you is that you have an intensity that can frighten others. And I was like, holy shit, send that to me. Write that down. That is like 100% the best way I've ever heard anybody describe me in my life. Like she was like, oh, I thought you were going to be like upset about that. And I was like, nope, that clears it up. Like that's really good.
It's that kind of stuff where you're like, oh, thank you, Lord.
So for me, I was like, oh, great. There's like validation for that. But I was like, that's the best way to be like, I say it as it is and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, no, that is like the perfect sentence to describe me. So I thought it was like a really valuable tool, but also what it helps me do is see a different way to interact with other people that aren't that intensity that can frighten others, right? And sort of have that thing. So I do recommend that people, kind of do anyone that you can,
exactly.
That is based in something. I'm not saying that go on and find a free that that tells you you're the color blue or whatever. Like make it something based it. But I think the other thing too is like I love that the premise of kind of where you went started from, sort of seeing that lack, because I felt the same thing. And I really connected with that because I sort of started in financial, like in accounting. And that is like, was very pigeonholed. It was 1998. It was like, this is the way you need to look.
We're the same age. We are the exact same age.
This is the way you need to look. Like this was before Google. Like this is the way you need to look. This is the way you need to act. Like everything. Like I still remember like the brown big oak furniture desk and giant chair and all that kind of, other stuff that went in with it. And it was, you needed to be like hard and rigid. And I just kept going, I'm so tired of seeing people leave my office and knowing they have no clue what happened and never giving them an opportunity to kind of go, what the hell are you talking about? Because I knew people like wouldn't ask because there was a fear there, right? I'm supposed to
Yeah.
know all of this stuff. I'm supposed to understand
Yeah.
that. And I feel that that is still there today, that entrepreneurs kind of get thrown into this and they're sort of like, I don't feel like I can ask these questions. I feel like, well, it's kind of dumb of me to not know this, to not know these things, or that, I should have, there should be somewhere that I could go to be an entrepreneur. And people say, oh, it's
Oh,
bred in you, or, your family must have been entrepreneurs. And I was like, I came from, like, my mother worked in the government, my father was in the military. That was what you did. And the only person I had who was an entrepreneur was the crazy uncle who started like every get rich quick scheme. Like, one week he was like, I'll clean your barbecue for you, and then the next week he was selling like some green drink, and then he was like onto pills, and then, like, right, so it was like entrepreneurship was considered like,
don't do
the
that.
crazy uncle.
Yeah,
Don't
don't
do
be that
that.
guy. Yeah, exactly.
Don't be
Yeah.
your uncle, and don't
Yeah.
talk to him. So for you, like, we had kind of talked about like who can be an entrepreneur. What is
Mm.
your thought around that?
Oh gosh, that's such a good question too. So again, back to the origin story. In business school, I remember they had entrepreneurship classes, and I was like, well, I'm no entrepreneur. Like, there's no need for me to take those classes. So fast forward, I was like, God, I really wish I took some of those classes. And so I think really the answer is entrepreneurship is really just saying, I see a better way of doing this. Or this should exist. Those, either one of those, or maybe there are more, right? But like that's really all it is just saying, I'm going to take this thing that kind of exists, but I'm going to change it like 30 degrees because I think this other thing there's a market for it, or this should exist, or something like that. And I think that the media does us no service. It's a real disservice about what entrepreneurship is and what success looks like and all this stuff, especially like in these tech businesses, because what I started to realize is there's a huge PR machine out there for these sort of startups, especially startups that raise a lot of capital. And there's really nothing that these journalists can write about because no one will share their numbers. And
Absolutely not.
so all you can really say is like, whoa, they raised so much money. Wow, they must be a genius. And then you get quotes from people saying how smart they were, when they were in third grade. And I just don't think that that's like valuable. I mean, what's valuable is like those podcasts, like how'd you start this, or why I started, like that one with like I'm always obsessed with like Sarah Blakely, who started Spanx.
Yep.
It's like the most like somewhat random, but like every person in North America has a one pair of Spanx at least. You know what I mean? Like it's a
Yeah.
very common product now. And I think like you would have said before she invented it, we would have been like, I will never wear a girdle.
Yeah.
And she was somewhere in between. And anyway, so I just think that like you have to like tune out all this stuff where they were destined for greatness and it was in their blood and all that crap. Everyone's different. Everyone has a different path. I mean, there are people who start businesses when they're 70. There are people
Yeah.
who start businesses when they're 9. And I think, the other thing that I would say, I had an epiphany a little while ago about like the word success is a weird word because you don't really use it in reference to yourself. Like, when have you ever said, oh, that was successful? Like, maybe you did like a dive that you wanted to do, or like a somersault or something. But usually you're just like, yeah, I'm just putting one foot in front of the other. I'm just doing the
Yeah.
best
Oh,
I
that
can.
worked.
Yeah. And I think that like this whole thing of like, oh, successful and genius, da, 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 that's not really what life is anyway, right? Life is like just trying to always make it better, or like you have a goal you're trying to achieve or whatever. And so I just say that like it's probably just a lack of experience with just the communities of entrepreneurship or whatever. And I think that should not be intimidating to anyone. The only thing that's a problem with entrepreneurship is the cash.
Mhm.
So if you start something and it goes viral, good for you. Like, you have no problem with money. If you start something that takes a while to learn and you're making errors, or you're going down a path you think will be good and it turns out it's not good, like then you wasted money because it didn't turn into a sales opportunity, but you also got a lot of learning. And so I think that that's the way you have to see it. And I think the more that you can kind of apply like the growth mindset to this stuff, it's just like not it shouldn't be daunting to anybody. It's available to everyone.
Well, and I always say success is subjective and
Yeah.
should be and should
Yeah.
change, right? Like what I am glad that I don't want what I wanted, back in 98 when I first started. Like it's changed a lot over the years in what I wanted to do and what I wanted to take on and what sometimes it was money, sometimes it was time, sometimes it was people, sometimes it was giving back. Like it's I feel like it's all should always be kind of a moving target. And like you said, some of my greatest successes are also my biggest failures. Right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
at the moment, whatever it was failed or did not work or whatever. But then the next time it was like I came from, I was educated in that thing. Like I was like, I am not doing that again. I understand those mistakes. And I was able to kind of then have this really great success. But I'm like, that wouldn't have happened if this would have kind of worked. It
Yeah,
was usually those
exactly.
things that bombed, and I was like, oh my God, okay, we are going to take absolutely everything that we did wrong and not repeat that. let's let's fix this and move on. And I think that's the only mindset, that's the only difference I think in an entrepreneur is you have the willingness to make the mistake and go, okay, now how can I not do that again? That
Yeah,
hurt.
exactly. And what was the lesson? That's another
Yeah.
thing that's really important that I feel like people love these days to say things like, I feel like they learned the wrong lesson. And that's a really good point too. Like, what's the actual lesson when something doesn't work? Is it because that you tried something doesn't work? No, it's because, this thing that your assumptions for some reason didn't work out, in reality. And is that a one-time thing? Is that structural? All that kind of stuff. But, yeah, no, I think that like that's why the whole like success failure thing is such a weird set of words. And I just feel like just try to ignore that and try to find your path. I mean, ultimately, I think with all jobs, it should be what feels right to you, like what is really aligned with like how you want to live your life or who you want to work for or what your day to day looks like. And then that is like the place you'll be most successful. Like when you're trying to be something you're not is when things don't work out.
Yeah. And I think it's true that I always tell people like ignore what anybody tells you about numbers unless they show it to you on
Oh, good
paper.
one. I love that. That's a good
Because
one.
I said I can't tell you how many clients that I've had that, are out, like especially social media, like these days, who are like, I make six figures. And I'm like sitting there going, not a lie per se. Like you did bring in, 101,000. So truth in it, six figures, you did bring it in. But I also know you spent 120 to get that six
Oh,
figures.
right,
So there's
right,
like a
right.
huge difference between revenue and profit there. And I always go, there's a lot of gray areas and we just never know which number they're pulling from. I'm not saying that they're lying. I'm just saying until you actually see everything on paper, maybe just kind of take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, well, and that's actually a huge issue with a lot of these startups, again, that get talked about in the media. Like, sure, maybe they made $1 million, but how much did you spend on advertising or,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Or
Yeah,
they combine everything, right? Well, we made $1 million and it was like, yes, but you also had investment. So how much like not given, take out the given part of it. And, and that's my financial mind that that
yeah,
always goes to it.
yeah.
But it's a difficult thing. Like it's a difficult thing when you're sort of navigating it and you're in that feeling of God, why am I not there yet? And then that's usually when I say just like kind of take a step back and stop comparing yourself because you don't know what you're comparing it to. If you're comparing your profit to somebody else's revenue, you're apples to
That is a great, I
oranges.
love, yeah, love,
Right.
100%.
So make sure you're
100%.
comparing something, that makes sense. I always think of that in myself. If you want to put it in a personal context, like I will compare myself to myself the previous, day, not when I was 20, because
Yeah,
when I
exactly.
was 20, there was a lot of different things going on. Metabolism was
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
I hadn't discovered cupcakes yet, really. Like there was just a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, totally, totally. Oh, 100%. You probably, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, I could go on and
Yeah.
on about things different about being
So I
20.
think the comparison
Yeah.
thing, kind of gets hard, but also then sort of changing your mindset to that growth, and thinking more on a growth aspect. So talk to me a little bit about that sort of mindset and how does
Oh,
somebody find that or recapture that?
Okay, so this always makes me think of this one coach on our platform. His name is Dr. Stephen Long. Super interesting guy. So he has this whole like content he's created. He's a PhD. He's basically developed a whole like training thing, but his dissertation was basically like, why do some people go beyond their talent? Why are some people like the really good examples are people like Tom Brady in the football or what's his name? I can't Michael Jordan in basketball.
Mhm.
Like Michael Jordan didn't make the varsity team in high school. There are people out there who are like become superstars and incredibly good at their thing, but they weren't the most talented 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 12-year-old. And like, how is that? And so he calls it like, what's the opposite? How do you teach the opposite of learned helplessness, right? It's like, and learned helplessness is a psychological concept of like how you can learn that like nothing you do makes a difference. It's like the opposite. You like learn how
Mhm.
everything you do is helps you grow. So anyway, he has this like program, and I went through it, and I learned so much. And basically, the more that you can adopt this growth mindset and see everything as a chance to get better or see everything as a chance for feedback, and you kind of like lower your ego as much as possible and sort of take out the like the umbrage you might feel or the frustration or the anger when someone gives you feedback, then that like opens up like your ability to learn and get better and to grow. And so I just spend all the time. It's not easy, by the way. Like a lot of times, like there's so dumb, but like I like to play tennis on the weekends with friends, and because I plan this like team, and again, like I'm just trying to get better. But I just so in order to get better, I have to play matches, friendly matches on the weekends to understand how to play the actual matches that help my team. Anyway, and so one time someone like forgot to like put me on their text chain for this like match, and I was kind of offended, but then I was like, serenity now. I'm sure it wasn't, like what does it matter if they forgot me or remember me? I was able to connect with them and I was able to play the match with them and it was fine. And it's like that kind of thing like doesn't do anyone any good to
Mhm.
just be like mad and hurt feelings and this whole thing, but like find a way to not have that happen again. Make sure like I'm in touch with this person so they know I always want to play, or what can I do differently so that doesn't happen again. And it's hard to do, but the more that you can just start to do every little thing possible to start seeing everything as an experiment or everything as a learning opportunity, it just changes your whole relationship with life and it just makes everything a little bit easier. And you can really let the little things slide a lot faster and you can move forward faster. And so that's just the thing I just think about constantly is like, no one knows everything. And when you think you know everything, you're going to make mistakes because you're missing details.
Yeah. And I think that's true. Like it's so easy to slip into the negative. We actually started years ago. I kept going to all of these workshops, and some of my listeners might have heard this story before, but you're gonna have to listen to it again. And it was like one of those things where you would sit down and you would write like 50 things or 100 things or whatever that you're like proud of or you're happy of or that make you smile. Or one of them was just like, yeah, like, so it was just like, it was everyone that I went to, and I was in this like genre of learning, right? So I was going to a lot of them. And I was like, I remember getting home and being like, sitting down with the team and sort of saying, here's what I learned. I'm like, if one more freaking person on a stage asks me to write a list of things that made me fucking happy, like I'm gonna lose my mind because this is not helpful to me at all. It's like, it's just not like, and I don't want to write 3 things that I'm grateful for every morning. And like, I was just tired of it. So I said, that's it. We're going to start anger journaling. Anytime something that pisses us off, we're going to write it down. And so it kind of started off as a joke. I brought everybody like red little books, and I was like, these are all our anger journals. And we're going to write, if something ticks us off, we're going to write it down. And I just sort of left it at that. But it was funny because my coach at the time was like, I know you did that as a joke, but I just know you. And I feel like there could be something behind that. So I really want you to figure out how you're going to use this, because now you have everybody writing down when they're pissed off. What's the purpose of this?
Yeah,
And it was
yeah.
really, really interesting because afterwards we had decided to sort of sit and look. And I did like what you did, that growth mindset. I'm not going to look at this as like, if anybody has like written anything of like, this person yelled at me or whatever, like it's not about taking offense. It's really
Yeah.
about looking at how can we take this data and look at it just strictly as data? It's no emotion to it. It's just words on a paper. And we really learned a lot. Like, we did huge shifts because people were like, I'm really good at doing this, but I don't like it. It's boring and it's making me not want to come to work. And like, it was like realizing that people had other potential. So we were like moving people around and getting them to experience new things. And people that were with the wrong clients, like, there was nothing wrong with them. They just didn't jive with them. But, it was like 6 times they'd be like, oh my God, I got to talk to Jim again. It was like, I'm like, that was kind of like a neat technique to do, not get stuck in. But I think that was, like you were saying, in the growth mindset, that's where I really started to sort of go, I need to start looking at criticism, or even when somebody sends an email and says like, oh, there's like, this link doesn't work on your website or whatever, of going, it's just data. It's just data.
Yeah.
Not emotion. It's not a criticism. It's like, take all of that out of it and just go, oh, this is data. That's great. Oh, spelling mistake. Great. Let's go and fix it. Good opportunity for us to like check other stuff, or whatever the case may be. And I think but it is hard to do because it's easy to get sucked back into, oh my God, all I'm ever getting is, people saying that they're upset about something or whatever,
what helps? And what helps get me out of that is like, the people telling me that something's wrong with my website. It's like every week, right? So I basically, even if I don't feel that way, I just write back or say back, thank you so much for letting me know. I just have to force myself, because one day I will feel that way, even if I'm feeling tired or criticized or whatever, because that's great. They're telling you something so you can make it better. Like, don't you want to have like a better thing than have someone not tell you, like, and I think you have to remember, like, you can also see feedback as a gift, right? Like, but it's all in the eye of the beauty of the beholder. And I just had this conversation with this guy like 2 days ago, or yesterday or something. And he does like listening coach stuff. And I was like, people talk about that. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
And because I was like, I know how to listen. Like, it's basically like my clients. I'm like, I know how to listen. Like, what the hell? But he was like, well, what it is a lot of times when people listen, they're not listening to your exact words. Like, you might say, I can't believe you didn't push the chair in. And what they hear is, oh, I'm never good enough. Or they hear, you failed. But what they're really saying is, you didn't push the chair in.
Yeah. Could you just push the chair
Just
in?
listen. It's just the chair. We're talking, you didn't push the chair in. It's not like you suck as a person. You always are terrible. I hate you. There's none of that. But there's something in like humans where when people say things, there's like subtext. And I think people assume a lot of subtext. And if you can just stay to the text, then you kind of like unburden yourself with all the other things that might be going on. And one of his things was A, is like listening to the actual words, but then B, actually being present to like not analyze, not interpret what they're saying, just like hear the actual words and how freeing that is. And I was like, this is so cool. I was like, but I think he should call a different thing, because like, don't we all know how to listen? But so anyway, but that was what I would say to you is like, there's something about that too. It's the same thing as the data, right? It's like, it's just like letting go of the associations and all the other stuff, and just like saying like, okay, here's some data, here's some information. What do you want to do with it? Like, you can do nothing with it, or you can do something with it, or, and then again, you choosing, not reacting.
Yeah. My friend's son is highly autistic, but he's verbal. And he said the most interesting thing. It totally like made me stop in my tracks, but he was telling his mom about like something that he didn't like that she was cooking or whatever. She was getting upset about it. And he stopped and he goes, can you stop hearing what I didn't say?
Wow.
And I was like, say it again. I came running in from the other room. I'm like, wait, say it again. And he goes, she's hearing what I didn't say.
Yeah.
Like, I want, beautiful. and it was so funny because she was like, he says that all the time. And I'm like, but it's so interesting. Like it was just such a different verbal way to go, hang on. Again, you're hearing this subtext. That's not what I said. I just said you cook chicken dry, or I can't even remember what it was. Or
oh my God,
didn't like barbecue sauce or whatever. But she just like went on, and I was like, as a mom, I'm telling you, I've done that numerous times, right? Like, ask my son all the time, how was your day? That's fine. and I'm like, oh my God, like what's wrong? And so now he uses a line. He's like, don't hear what I didn't say. It was
Oh my
fine.
God, I love
And I was
that.
like, great. Now I should have told nobody about this, but it was such a great sort of step back. And whenever I feel myself kind of like feeling attacked, maybe when someone says something, or being
Mm,
like, oh, like, is this person upset with me? Or like when my eyebrows start to furrow when somebody's talking, I feel my face talking, then I kind of go, hang on, am I hearing what they're saying or not? Am I
yeah,
hearing what they didn't say? And so I sort of take a step back and go, okay, hang on a second here. Like, what do I
yeah.
need to hear? And I agree with you. In theory, this is really easy, but yeah, are there times that I fly off the handle because I hear what I want to hear?
Or sometimes you also know what they mean. That's also that component too, especially with like husbands or people you're with all the time. We're like, they're saying this one thing, but they really mean this other thing. And like,
Yeah.
that's just one thing. And then you have to get into it. But like, one time I was saying to my husband, I was like, you may not be aware that you're rolling your eyes when you say that. And he's like, oh, no, I'm not. I didn't realize I was doing that. I was like, that's why I think you're making fun of me when you say whatever this thing was or whatever.
Yeah.
And oh. I was like, yeah, I mean, so you can understand why I'm not taking it at face value what you're saying because you're like,
Yeah. My
you ignore.
husband like brings like addresses everything with humor. Like especially if
Mm.
he's in trouble, like he'll just try to get out of it by like being funny. And it's worked it's probably the reason why we're still married. But he used to do this thing where I'd be like, you left crumbs on the counter. And he's like, I never leave crumbs on the counter. But he'll do it deadpan, right? And I'm like, you okay, fine. And then the next
Yeah.
day it was like there was like foot marks. And I was like, you walked through the kitchen with your boots on. Like I've asked you not to wear your shoes. And he's like, I didn't do that. And I was like, so I would send him photos and I'd be like, there's footprints. And it's like, I am not seeing any footprints. And I was like, I I know you think you're being funny, but this is how you get murdered. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
Like, and so this like big, I said, and he's like, you can't murder me. You would never get away with it. I'm like, I would literally just need a female judge and I would just depict all of these things that you do. And then she would be like, case dismissed. And so it became a joke that every time he would do something like this, I would kind of have this keyword that I would go, and that's when I shot him, Your Honor.
Oh,
And he would go case dismissed, and then he would know, like, stop, hang on a second, like I'm being serious, I need you to be kind of
yeah,
serious. But it
right.
became such a statement that was like, it's literally embroidered on a pillow that somebody gave to me because it's like a
Oh,
funny thing. But I always say, like, if my husband ever goes missing, I'm in a lot of trouble because I have threatened his life so many times
yeah.
that I pretty much everybody would be like, have you looked at his wife?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Too much true crime.
Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. No, and I think it's just so interesting. And I really just feel like now, like with that, like knowledge, it just like helps you through life so much. Life's just easier,
Yeah.
you know, or even now, like again with the husbands, but like you can advocate for yourself better too. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll like make food and my husband be like, Francie, if you did this, this, and this, it'd be a lot better. And I go, listen, you got three things you can say. You can say nothing, you can say thank you, you can say this is good. Other than that, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'm not mad anymore because I'm just like, you know what? I know you want to get into a whole discussion about how I made this and how it could be better. And I was like, I'm not looking for that. I just was looking to put food on the table and like, have those conversations with your mother. Like, that's
Yeah.
fine. Like, that's just not what I
Why
want
don't
to
you
hear.
show me next time? Why don't you do all those
Yeah.
things and you show
Oh,
me next
well,
time how it should be
yeah, exactly.
cooked?
Well, no, there's a lot of that too. Like, hey, can you cook? Like, yeah, sure, no problem. I'll just do these 10 things. And then it's like 8:30. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, the husband thing you could have a whole podcast about. But it just really is helpful with dealing with people because it just takes out the knot, the lock, or whatever you want to say. And
Mm-hmm.
I just think about it all the time these days because it gets me out of so much trouble, I guess is the other way to say it.
Well, and I think, I had, sort of said at the beginning of the podcast that we were going to be talking about boats. And one of your things is like, a rising tide lifts all
Oh,
boats and
yeah.
kind of directing yourself to sort of be that person. So, first off,
Mhm.
explain what you mean by that. And then let's dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I love that analogy. And just really just the idea of it's actually the opposite of fixed pie. So the fixed pie mindset is there's one pie, and we're all gonna be fighting over who gets the biggest piece
Right.
or how many pieces you had, or that's it. It's finite. It's this finite thing. Whereas, good luck measuring the ocean, and if a tide rises, all the boats rise because it doesn't matter if you're a big boat or a small boat, but you're just all sitting at the tip of the edge of the water. And so I just believe that like you can solve problems that solve work for a lot of people.
Hmm.
There's no need to just solve for one person or whatever. And then that gives me like this thing I learned like in maybe 10 years ago, something about like intersectionality, which is like the more that you can solve problems for like the most vulnerable people, the more it just helps everyone.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so beautiful. And so I just think about that all the time. And that's part of this business, right? Is like we have three stakeholders, and the whole thing is like we're super honest about how we have only one website. We're not telling different people different things. We're just really transparent about how it works. And our hope and my belief is that we can all do well together. And like and with a fair and where everyone's treated well and everyone's doing well and growing and having it all be great. Like there's no one's getting the better end or the worse end or the better contract, the worst contract, all that kind of stuff. And everything's meant to like, lead with like integrity and intellectual honesty and stuff like that. And that just to me makes me so happy because I am just like a believer. That's just the kind of world I want to live in.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's true. We forget about that because, we kind of get as entrepreneurs sometimes can get into this mindset of, I just have to concentrate on me. It's all about you and all about what
Mm.
you can do. And I always remember my dad saying to me, really this was when I was going into corporate, but he was like, listen, I was like, give me your best piece of advice. And he's like, be nice to everybody
Oh, yep.
because the people that you step over as you succeed may be the same ass as you have to kiss on the way back down. So just be nice. And I was like, weird analogy, but okay. Um, and I mean, way back then, I was like, whatever, like, because we didn't listen to it. But I felt like it was really true because I will always remember this one guy that used to always come to me and he was like, I know I'm not big enough to work with you yet and blah, blah, blah. And I would see him for like years and he would come around. And finally I was like, let's just work together. Like you keep
Mm.
saying this. And it was so funny because at the time, yeah, he wouldn't have been like a typical person that I would have taken on or whatever, but he just kind of had that drive and I was feeling pulled to him. And it was like 2 years later, all of a sudden, he like his business just shot up. And now all of a sudden he was like, was way up the ladder, for me. And I was like, wow, that is like so crazy. But then he was like, hey, what do you need? Like, do you need more people?
Mm.
Do you like I kind of said?
Mm.
And so he was that tide where he was like, look, I rose, but I'm gonna pull you with me.
Oh, yeah,
Um,
love.
and I just thought that's where we need to be in business. Like we need to, as entrepreneurs, and what my strive is it's okay to say you're not okay because nobody else can help you
Yeah.
if
Yes.
they think you're doing fine. If you're constantly like, no, everything's great, I'm perfect, I'm at the peak of my success, then people are like, okay, I'll just kind of leave you there then. And it's a hard thing to do. I know it was like a hard thing for me to do, to even just be like, hey, like I need help, I can't do this, I need to find somebody else or whatever the case may be. But I've found every time I've done it, there's always something that has come back. What I call it, karma, call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I think it's, that aspect of, it happens to us, but we also have to be that person as we rise up to go, hey, there's somebody who is where I was at
Yeah.
and, is
Yeah.
going, God, I just wish somebody would help me.
And oh gosh, I mean, there are so many things I could say from that. But like one thing I'll say, even just like selfishly, whenever I feel stuck and I'm like, how can I make this work? How can I make this work? What gets me unstuck is speaking to another person about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And just saying like, here's the thing I can't figure out. Can you, what do you think I should do? Either like they give me a different way to think about it, or maybe they introduce me to somebody, or there's who knows why you feel compelled to mention to one person another. And but I do just think that like I always am tickled by that. It's like 100% the case that like whenever like I'm sort of a little bit spinning my wheels and I'm able to talk to somebody about it, like good things happen.
Yeah.
And I think that also just makes me think about coaching, makes me think about psychotherapy, and just like all this stuff, right? Actually, what I was thinking about when you're talking the Red the Anchor book, I was kind of wondering if the story was going to be how balanced people were because they were getting off their frustrations. Because they weren't bottling up their frustrations. They're like getting it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit too, because we did have the rule that they could just write in the book and keep it to themselves. But if they wanted to
Mm.
share, then we would kind of share as a group. And there was a lot of laughter that came out of it because some of the things we knew were ridiculous. And a lot of, I'll always remember at the time, my one assistant that I had, she was very serious. She took everything seriously. She wanted to be taken seriously. And when she would voice it within the group, and people would be like, "Oh my God, that's upsetting you." Like, we're not upset about that at all. Like, but she would be mad because she thought she was failing people. And they're like, "What are you talking about?" It really sort of brought stuff into perspective. And we all kind of realized, hey, sometimes we get really upset or feel down about ourselves about something that nobody else cares about. Right. Like,
Yeah.
she was like, I did this thing like, 4 weeks ago, and she was still harboring it, feeling bad about it. The other person was like, I've moved on. Like, you've just wasted 4 weeks of your life worrying about this thing that need not be, kind of worried about. But it's hard because, like you said, we internalize and we, put our assumptions on what it is that we heard or things that, we're kind of experiencing in life.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. Yeah, I mean, oh Lord, I love it. I think that's just really crazy cool about the anger book, and I'm thinking about that right now. But yeah, and I think so like the one thing that makes me really just proud of Tarawad is like just being able to like solve three people's problems at once. Like I always think of it as like threading the needle, and that like it would probably be easier to make it two people, or you know what I mean, or maybe not even
Right.
do a marketplace, just to have like a business where I'm just selling something. But I think like what I'm doing now just makes me so delighted, and like it makes it easier to also work because I feel like I have people I'm helping, and that's also it's like it also changes the relationship to work. I'm not trying to become I don't care what people think about me, and that also helps a little bit with the work. But I do think that like the more that like you have someone you're helping and like you're doing things that are aligned with like what matters to you, it just makes everything so much easier.
Well, and I think, because I always tell people, like, meet people and they'll go, "Oh, look, I wish I could be like as carefree." And I'm like, "Oh no, I cared what people thought a lot when I was younger. I think it just comes with age. You just stop giving a
Mhm.
shit." Like, you're like, "Look,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really feel like I'm changing." I feel like this is just, this is the way I'm going. And so come along for the ride or whatever. And I always look at like people who are older than me and the freedoms kind of that they have. And I'm like, oh, I swear I'm the only person who's like, I can't wait to get old,
Yeah, yeah.
and have the freedom of being able to say whatever is on your mind at any point in time. And then people just go, crazy old lady. Like
Yeah.
because I feel like if I were to say some of the stuff I've heard people in my, like, older people in my community who have no filters, it's a lot of fun going into Walmart and watching these people.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and people are just like, crazy old lady. I'm like, oh my God, I'd be in a fist fight.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, when she was like, "Oh, sweetie, what this is not okay." Right. And I was like, oh my God. And then they were like, okay. And then like she walked away and they were like, weird old lady. And then and I was like, and I'm thinking, if I would have said that, I'm sure there would have been like a yelling match or something. So I was like, there's just freedom in age.
Yeah, 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 totally. That's true. That's true. That's for darn sure. I mean, yeah, all that. Yes, for 100%. And I think, the other thing I was just speaking, I was thinking, I wonder, or is it like there's just almost too much truth, and no one wants to acknowledge that those people are actually like these truth tellers, Like I would be curious to know what that outfit looked like. You know what I
Um,
mean? That the lady
yeah,
was like,
it wasn't it probably should have remained in the closet. Like, I was kind
yeah,
of thinking that too. I was like, oh well, I mean, to each their own. It was odd,
yeah.
but I'm not the one who's wearing it too, But I was just like, I think that it was shocking. I think it's shocking for a lot of people. I think what also, always helps is, my husband was with me at the time, and he'll laugh at stuff, but he has this weird, like, his superpower is this giggle, and I will call it a giggle that he has, that you can't, he's like the perfect person. If you were to be a comedian, you'd want him in the audience because
Oh yeah.
everybody laughs when they hear him laughing. And it, you know, it kind of becomes contagious. Now, on the downside of that is that he gets away with a lot of stuff that he shouldn't get away with because he finds himself very, very amusing.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he's the funniest person on the planet. So even if nobody else is laughing, he's laughing and having a great old time. But
Yeah.
again,
Self-love is very important.
one of those lessons you can learn of like not taking yourself, you know, kind of too seriously and, you know, sort of adopting, you know, that mindset like we're talking about, you know. So for you and in the work that you do, who is like, because I know there's people who are listening to this whole episode having fun with us, laughing with us and everything, but kind of going, you know what, I'm sort of feeling that I need help, that I'm, you know, I'm not finding the research that I need to find, or I'm not finding the place that I need to find. Talk to us a little bit about exactly what it is that you guys do and who your ideal person is.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So I mean the real kind of pitch I make to people is there's a relationship between well actually as a former accountant, this will be very good for you. Like a lot of people don't pay attention to the cost of the organization of people quitting.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people talk about it a little bit like on a per person basis, and they'll say like 30% of a salary is the cost of replacing somebody. But, really, whatever your, annualized quit rate is or voluntary turnover rate, that is a cost. And even if it's in line with their industry average, like there's a cost to that because if you had a lower voluntary turnover rate, you would spend less money on recruiting and onboarding and all the things. And so what I'm always trying to say to people is like, you know, we can help you reduce turnover through helping you increase psychological safety at your organization. And I think that's a relationship not a lot of people are aware of. And, like I think in like maybe 10 years ago, the idea was, oh, we'll just bring like, pool tables and ping pong tables in and everyone will stay and dry cleaners and whatever the crazy stuff they were doing at Facebook.
Yeah,
And
I
that's,
remember the yearly retreats.
yeah, oh,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, there you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, yearly
the
retreats.
mandatory yearly
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
retreat.
everyone's like pissed sitting there. Like, I
Yeah,
can't believe I do
they're
these
like,
people
great,
more.
I have to canoe with Chuck.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's like the story of my entire 20s where they'd be like, let's go get a beer. And I'm like, I already spend 12 hours a day with you guys. Like, why do I want to have alcohol for another hour with you? It was like, oh. But so, I guess so my point is really just like there's this relationship. It's super cool. There's tons of research about it. And then we're just trying to like make it easier for people to, improve their culture, improve the longevity of their employees. And what's cool is that the employees want it too, especially like Gen Z and millennials. They expect professional development to be provided by their employer. And that's a change from when we were Gen X, where the assumption was we did that stuff on our own. And so that's really like our business, right? And so what it is we have coaches who we vet who are like awesome experts who are basically CEO level coaches. And what we do is we say, let's have this coach come to your office and, that person can coach or teach whatever the thing is, 10, 20, 30, 40 people. And that group of people splits the rate of the coach. And so the coach is made happy because they are getting their market rate. The employees are learning and developing, and the employer is investing money that's benefiting the company as well as the employee. So like another way to think about it is, let's say this costs like $4,000. This could have been money you spent sending someone to a conference. Well, definitely it's better money than that because someone's at a conference sitting on their butt listening to people speak on a panel. That's not how adults learn, right? Adults learn through
Yeah.
socialization, through discussion, through questions, all this kind of stuff, reflection. Um, and so you learn better and it's with your people. So guess what? Like the collegiality is increasing. People are problem solving better in your organization. Maybe you're de-siloing. Like all these great things start to happen. With that same $4,000, you could just give someone a check and they could buy a couch. But does that couch affect your end of year retained earnings? And it's like that's the kind of discussion I think that like is very data filled that you can have, and it's really interesting. And there's just a lot of research about this, and I think there didn't used to be this research like 20, 30
Hmm.
years ago, but exists now. And it's really all kind of comes down to like psychological safety. And that's like from actually a really cool woman named Dr. Amy Edmonton. And so I think she helped Google figure out that like their best teams have a high degree of psychological safety. And it's just what we were talking about, right? It's like the
Hmm.
ability to like say what's on your mind or say your opinion and not feel like that's a negative or not feel like something bad will happen to you or you'll be demoted or you'll be known as stupid, right? It's like it's a
Yeah.
lot of respect for the individual and that ends up becoming really valuable because then you end up you are out of groupthink, right? Because then everyone's giving their opinion. You're not all like drinking the Kool-Aid. Everyone's talking about what are the edge cases, what they think, what could be a problem, and make better solutions because it solves for more of the population. And so anyway, that's our whole shtick. That's our spiel. And if someone feels like they would like to bring that to their organization, we would be delighted to speak to them, right? I mean, it could either be in person or virtual or whatever. But the way to think about us is like Airbnb for executive coaches. So it's kind of like we want to be as customized as people need. But just the key is to have a goal so that we can measure it, before after, like what's the change and see if there is like a return on investment or not. And I think what's so cool is it's extremely high. Like investing in human capital has like like a crazy high return on investment. And it's just not thought that way. And so like one of my big fantasies is like spending all my time with CFOs and talking to them about their like investment plans. Cause I'm like, what about, learning and development? Because that will like knock out of the water the returns of everything else you're looking at. But typically CFOs don't work with L&D people.
Hmm.
And I think that like one of my things is I think that's like the future of work, is I think those two people can really do really cool stuff together.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like as your as people, even if you're sitting there and going, well, it's like me and an assistant right now, if you're out there listening, obviously for a lot of people, and that might be what your version of success is, as we said before, it's subjective to what you want. But as you're going, that is like one of the things of professional development, whether it's for your team or just for yourself, that a lot of people don't think of, or it's an afterthought, or it's something that gets put on credit. We just hope for the best after. But it is one of the best investments that you can ever make, whether, like I said, whether it's individually or for a team, because there's always some kickback that happens from that and stuff that you learn. And the last thing we want to do is keep training new people like that. There's a lot, like it's
Yes.
heavy.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I would say, like, I love that idea. Like, okay, so two people in an office, it's a person and assistant. What'd be super cool is like doing together some like personality assessment and seeing where you guys conflict and where you gel, and maybe areas of like disagreement that can be explained by your styles. Like that would be so cool. Like there's always ways to like get better and more efficient. And I'm just a believer that like when people start getting along better and they can just sort of align to like the North Star of what they're doing, it's like you're rocking and rolling. Like, why would
Yeah.
you leave? This is so fun because you're just doing exactly what you mean to be doing and you're not getting bogged down to dumb politics or little petty fights or whatever the things are.
Yeah. I mean, they're fun to watch, but they're not fun to partake in.
It really sucks to be in the middle of them. It's a lot more fun when you have the
Yeah.
popcorn. 100%.
Well, thank you so much. I think there is so much information for people in here. What is the best way for them to find out more about you and to find out more about your company? Where's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, well, definitely our website. So just terawatt.co, C-O, and two T's. And then I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So Francie Jain on LinkedIn or Terawatt on LinkedIn. That's our main social media. Yeah, and just, feel free to reach out. Like I just love chatting with people. So, any kind of questions or thoughts or comments, feedback, tips or spelling errors on the website, feel free to send them my way. I will not be offended.
At least you'll try. And that's all we
Yeah,
can ever
yeah,
ask
exactly.
for. Well, thank you
Exactly.
so much, Francie, for coming on the show. We'll make sure we have all of the links to where people can access you in the show notes. So just scroll down to get all of those so that you don't have to search for them. It has been such a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Thanks.
I really do think I have the best job in the world, not only because I get to deal with the clients that I do, but part of my job is just having amazing conversations like the one that I just had with Francie. And so, what I would love for you to do is reach out, make sure that you follow her, that you engage with her, let her know if you have see any spelling mistakes or link errors on her website, as she said. But also take a moment after you listen to this episode to really sit down and think, where am I coming from? Am I coming from a growth mindset? Am I actually trying, to figure out the path of success? And again, remember, as I said, success is subjective. You get to decide what that is. And are there some things that I want to learn? Are there some things that I want to work on with my team, whether that's a team of 2 people or whether that's a team of 500 people? And am I doing everything that I can to be that rising tide that's going to lift all boats in my circle? Is maybe there's something extra that I can do or something additional? So, and also if you're sitting out there and going, I don't know, like I'm not an entrepreneur yet, I don't think that's like in my wheelhouse, it's not something I'm used to doing. Is that something that you can start? Yes, I think everybody has the capacity to do whatever it is they want. You just have to have the drive, the determination, and someone there who's going to help push you on. And I'm happy to be that person. And I hope this podcast is that for you too. So, as I always say, if there's another topic that you want to learn about, something that is just sitting in your back mind that you're like, I wish somebody would actually talk about this, send me a message. They come to me, I listen to them all. And if I'm not the person, I'm going to find somebody who has the knowledge, like Francie, to be able to talk to you about it. So no matter what it is that you're doing today, always make sure that you take time to have fun. Because if you're not having fun, why are you doing it?